so short. I have nothing to do. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do, but every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. So all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
I got one response. I got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you.
So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
You are my day and night. You are my every breath. Here in this moment and infinite. How wonderful, how beautiful, how permanent that you never fail me all my life. When I'm surrounded, you're by my side. How wonderful, how beautiful, how permanent. You never fail me all my life. You are my resting place. Oh, you are my solid ground. Always before me and all around. How wonderful, how beautiful, how permanent.
turn sorrow to gladness. Yeah, that's what you do. I give glory and honor for all that you do. I will sing hallelujah for all that you do. You raise beauty from ashes. Yeah, that's what you do. You turn sorrow to gladness. Yeah, that's what you do. I give glory and honor for all that you do. I will sing hallelujah for all that you do. You raise beauty from ashes. Yeah, that's what you do. You turn sorrow to gladness.
That's what you do.
And I give glory and honor
For all that you do.
I will sing hallelujah.
You raise beauty from
That is what you do. You turn sorrow to gladness. Yeah, that's what you do. I give glory and honor for all that you do. I will sing hallelujah for all that you raise beauty from ashes.
That's what you do.
You turn sorrow to gladness.
That's what you do.
I give glory and honor
For all that you do.
I will sing hallelujah for all that you do. For all that you do. All you've done for me. For all that you do. You're turning it around. For all that you do. Oh, for all that you do.
If Good Friday had a topography, it would be the desert. It was a day that felt like all hope and joy and possibility was gone. Night was overtaking life. Night was overtaking light. And Jesus was at the last moment of his life. And all of those who followed him had to be confused, had to wonder what in the world is going on. John, who followed Jesus and was that particular disciple that Jesus loved so much, writes these words in John 19, verse 30. He says that when he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. John's describing this moment where Jesus is agonizing on the cross, where it's the end of his life, and he cries out, "I'm thirsty." It's that moment of just raw humanity, that moment which seems that Jesus is just begging for just the smallest relief of his agony and pain. And they take a blend of wine vinegar and soak a sponge in it and attach it to the end of the stalk of a hyssop plant and press it against Jesus' lips. But what we discover is that Jesus wasn't really looking for this wine vinegar to alleviate his pain, which is sometimes what they did for those who were being crucified. He actually wanted to clear his throat. He wanted to be heard. He wanted to make sure that his last words were clear. So it says, when he had received the drink, he said, "It is finished." Now, for those of us who are listening, we hear three words, but really when Jesus spoke, it was one word, tetelestai. And when Jesus spoke that word, he made that declaration. It could have been interpreted so differently by the hearers, because you see, if you're dying on a cross and you say it is finished, the natural interpretation of that would be, I'm done. I failed. It's over. But actually what Jesus was saying was, it is finished. It is accomplished. Everything I came to do on this earth has now been fulfilled. It's one of those moments in time where you could not possibly understand the meaning of something being said because of the context in which it was said.
It's as if someone was looking at a desert and began to speak of a field of flowers filled with beauty and wonder and an array of colors and aromas, and
all you see is sand and stone. When Jesus cried out, it is finished, they had to have heard him declaring his defeat. They could not have understood he was declaring his conquest, his victory, his accomplishment. It is finished. What a strange thing that at the cross, on this Good Friday, when they thought it was the symbol of defeat, that what you actually find at the cross is hope. It's as if Jesus was saying, this looks like the end, but it's just the beginning of all things. I don't know about you, but I've had so many moments in my life, so many times in my life where I have felt as if I'm just stranded in a desert. I'm parched and exhausted and tired and weary, and it seems as if the challenge is endless and nothing seems to be changing. It's in those moments when you feel as if there is no way forward, no way through. It's in those moments where it seems that darkness is overtaking hope, that you need to hear the words of Jesus. It is finished. I have accomplished this. I have won this battle. And this is the battle for the human spirit. This is the battle for your future and your freedom. At the cross, we strangely find hope. In the moment of humanity's greatest despair, hope was still rising and being declared from the lips of Jesus. It says that Jesus speaks this word, it is finished. And then John writes, with that, he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit. Even there, John's wording is so rich with intention. When he says he bowed his head, the word for bowed literally means he rested his head. I mean, how peculiar that in this moment of agonizing violence, this moment filled with chaos, that the word rest could actually find a place there. And he bowed his head. He rested his head. Jesus is hanging on this cross, and John is observing this moment, and his description of this moment is, and then after Jesus said, it is finished, he rests his head. Let me tell you something. I'm really cognizant of the fact that humans really do not thrive in the desert. This is not where we were created to live. This is the home of rattlesnakes. And as it gets darker, if I'm right about this, snakes are nocturnal creatures, and they come out at night. And there's no way in the world I would ever willingly choose to make a bed here, to rest my head here, to sleep restfully through the night here. And yet, John describes the cross as the place where Jesus rested his head. You need to hear the contrast where it is written about Jesus that he explained to his disciples that foxes have holes and birds of the air, they have nests. But the Son of Man, he has no place to rest his head. And so Jesus about himself said, I don't have any place on this earth where I can rest. There is no place for me here. Even the wild animals have a home, but the creator of the universe, the Son of God, the Messiah, has no place to rest his head. And yet, now John chooses to use this language. The same Jesus who had no place to rest his head, now rested his head against the cross. Not only is there hope at the cross, but there's peace at the cross. Man, this year, and when I say year, I mean more than a year. This 2020 and 2021 have stolen our peace. They haven't just stolen so many other things. This pandemic and this quarantine and all the challenges we face, they've stolen so much of our lives. It's stolen simple things like enjoying hot pizza sitting in a restaurant. It's stolen going to AMC and watching a great film. It's stolen sitting in a great coffee shop talking with friends while you're sipping on your espresso. It has stolen going to watch the Lakers play. I had a hard time saying that, and watching the Lakers play and the Clippers play and the Kings play and the Sparks play and LAFC play, and it's stolen so much from us. It is stolen from children, the joy of going to school, of playing with their friends, of having recess. Can you imagine how many kids right now wish they could go to school so they could wish they were not in school? It's stolen so much from us. But maybe the thing that's stolen from us the most is our peace. Listen just for a moment. Do you hear that? Do you hear the silence? The stillness? The quiet? Do you remember those moments where there was stillness and silence and quiet in your soul? Do you remember when your soul wasn't tormented with fear about your future, your job, your family, your health, life and death, failure and success, wealth and poverty? No wonder people are struggling. No wonder there's so much depression. No wonder people are overwhelmed with anxiety. No wonder we're paralyzed by stress and fear. We've lost the peace that is supposed to inhabit our souls. And here's what I want you to see on this Good Friday, that not only is there hope at the cross, and Jesus declares it is finished. The future has begun. But then he bows his head, he rests his head, and if Jesus can find peace at the cross, exactly what environment could steal from us our peace? If Jesus can find peace at the cross, then we can find peace in any moment, in any circumstance, in any situation in life. And more than that, Jesus can give you the peace he carried in that moment on the cross. And I know that I need that peace because my soul has been in chaos so much. So much noise in my head, so many voices of concern and dealing with the uncertainty of life and the responsibilities that we all carry. And yet I'm going to hold on to this moment in the life of Jesus. I'm going to lean into the cross because when I lean into the cross, there's hope and there's peace. And then John says, when he had received the drink, he said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit. Listen to his language. And he gave up his spirit. Not they took his spirit from him. See, I'm looking at this moment, and if I was trying to describe this moment, if I was writing this moment, I would not use the phrase, "and he gave up his spirit." I would say, "and they ripped his spirit out of his body, and they took what was not there to take, they took his life." I think if I were writing this moment, I would have to write Jesus as the victim, not the victor. I would write him as powerless, not powerful. I would write him as out of control, not in control. But John writes, and he gave up his spirit. What John is telling us is that Jesus was not a victim in this moment. He was an offering. He chose to give up his life. He gave up his spirit. And so not only is there hope at the cross and peace at the cross, there's power at the cross. Nothing can steal from you the life God created you to live. And what to me is so extraordinary, in this brief life of Jesus, living only to the age of 33, that would be a tragedy for most of us. And yet most of us would rather live 66 years or 99 years without ever fulfilling God's intention for our life. Jesus was satisfied living 33 years, fulfilling God's purpose for his life. Maybe we should put less energy and less effort on existing and start making a determination to live our lives with intention. We need to choose to live, not just exist. And Jesus gave up his spirit. I mean, frankly, a lot of the conversation over the last year and a half has been around the fear of dying because of COVID-19. And I always want to be responsible, and it's so important to listen to health professionals and to pay attention to the insight and knowledge and discovery and research of science. But the one thing I do know is this: no one can take your life from you when you've given your life to Jesus. Because then your life is in God's hands. And it tells us in the scriptures that God determines the day you're born and the day you die. God determines your life. And I think a lot of us are just holding on, trying to exist, and it's like trying to grab a hold of sand and wondering why it just keeps slipping through our fingers. And when he had received the drink, he said, "It is finished." It's done. There's nothing else you or I need to do to live our lives filled with hope. The cross is the guarantee that tomorrow will be better than today, that the future is yours, that nothing and no one can take that from you. And he bowed his head. There's peace at the cross. It's a promise that you can have the peace that he himself came to bring. And Jesus told us, do not let your hearts be troubled. He wants us to know that he came to bring us his peace. And he wants us to rest in that every moment of every day of our lives. And then he gave up his spirit. Jesus died the way he lived. Every moment of his life was with intention and purpose. Every moment of his life was as purposeful as when God spoke and all of creation came into existence. Every moment of Jesus' life was an act of creation. And as I look around at the beauty all around me, I see the sun setting in all of its majesty against the landscape of these hills made of stone. Across a landscape of desert that becomes a beautiful panorama of God's creativity and artistry. I'm reminded that God is the God who does not take. God is the God who gives. And he gave up his spirit. I think a lot of people misunderstand God, and we talk about things like worship and about having faith, that somehow it's because God is needy. He needs us to worship him, and he needs us to believe in him, and he needs us to obey him, and he needs us so that he can receive what he needs. I want you to understand something. God does not need anything from us. He doesn't need anything from you or anything from me. He came to give us everything we need. And when Jesus gave up his spirit, he was releasing his life so that his life could be received by us. In fact, later, Jesus tells his disciples that he cannot stay with them because the Spirit of God must be released on the earth And as long as he's here, his Spirit cannot come. And when he gave up his Spirit, this was Jesus allowing his body to be broken so that the salve of life, which is his presence, his Spirit, could dwell in us. So when you look at the cross on this Good Friday, when you look at the cross, don't see defeat or violence or death or failure only. Look at the cross and see hope and peace and power. Because the cross is God's promise that the night will never fall on hope, that the darkness will never prevail over the light, that death cannot conquer life. And when we lean to the cross and we open our lives to Jesus, we receive that hope and that peace and that power that sets us free. And maybe you're listening right now, this moment, on this Good Friday. And maybe for the first time, the pieces are coming together. It finally makes sense that God himself stepped into human history, took on flesh and blood, walked among us. His name was Jesus. That he lived a perfect and sinless and holy and beautiful life. And then gave himself as a sacrifice for us so that through his death we might live. And that the cross was not an accident. The cross was essential. Jesus' death became the portal, the gateway, the passageway to life. And when we embrace his death for us, when we come to him in humility, when we ask him for forgiveness, when we give him our lives as he has given his life for us, we receive his life, we receive his forgiveness, and we receive his freedom. If you're here right now and you've never invited Jesus into your life, but this is the moment you're ready to cross the line of faith, I want to invite you right now just to pray with me and ask Jesus to give you the hope and peace and power to live the life God created you to live. If you're ready to give your life to Jesus right now, would you pray this prayer with me? Jesus, I give you my life. Right now, just tell him, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. You know, when you look at a sunset, it's kind of hard to know in that intersecting moment whether that sunset is a sunrise or a sunset. Could go either way. And maybe, just maybe, like they thought the cross was the end, but it was just the beginning. Maybe you thought it was the sunset on your life, the sunset on your hope, your dreams, your future, your freedom. But you were wrong. It was the sunrise all along. If you crossed the line of faith and gave your life to Jesus, this moment is the beginning of new things. Happy Good Friday.